इस बार के मानसून सत्र में भी महुआ काफी मुखर रही। महुआ मोइत्रा ने केंद्र सरकार पर खूब हमला बोला और उसे आड़े हाथों लिया। पीएम केयर्स फंड की पारदर्शिता पर सवाल से लेकर एमपी लैड फंड में कटौती को लेकर भी उन्होंने सदन में बहुत कठिन सवाल की। क्या कुछ कहा महुआ मोइत्रा ने इस मानसून सत्र में, देखिए जरा इस रिपोर्ट में।
तृणमूल कांग्रेस की सांसद महुआ मोइत्रा सदन में लगातार मुखर होकर बोलती रही हैं और सरकार से सीधा सवाल करती रही हैं। इस बार के मानसून सत्र में भी महुआ ने सदन में पीएम केयर फंड्स की पारदर्शिता पर सवाल खड़ा किया था। उन्होंने दिखाया है कि विपक्ष के सांसद को कैसा होना चाहिए।
The back of accountability and transparency. In the past 6 years, we've had very little of that from the government. The one thing I would like to point out that the MP lads is perhaps the only thing where MPs are directly accountable to their constituents. When we come into power, when we are voted in, we promise certain things. Each time we go back to our area and we don't deliver, people ask us. The 2.5 crores that we get for the first 6 months, it is only after we produce utilization certificates for the work done that the other 2.5 crores is released. So there is no bigger or greater example of accountability and transparency than this. And by taking this away, I think the government is doing the country a great disservice. It not only owes us answers, but all the constituents in this of ours are owed answers by the government. And so I would request the House to speak in one voice, which we have done already, and I would request the government to take heed of that voice and to please reinstate MP land.
साथ ही महुआ मोइत्रा ने कोरोना काल में एमपी लैंड में कटौती को लेकर भी सदन में सवाल किया था और सरकार पर हमलावर हुई थी।
Honorable Chairperson, sir, I symbolically stand to oppose the taxation and other laws, relaxation and amendment of certain provisions Bill 2020 on behalf of my party, the All India Trinamool Congress. This bill is deeply problematic because it further weakens the rights and resources available to the states by taking away the statutory promises made under the new GST regime. And on the other hand, it corners public funds for PM cares to the direct detriment of the state relief funds. Clause 7 of the bill seeks to amend the Central Goods and Services Act 2017, allowing the government to extend the time limit for completion of actions under the Act in events of force majeure such as an epidemic. With retrospective effect, this will permit the government to retrospectively validate its failure and extend the time limit indefinitely while dispersing compensation to the states. I wish to ask via you, Honourable Chairperson, does the Honourable Finance Minister conveniently forget that GST was only made possible because the states ceded almost all their powers to levy local indirect taxes? The underlying promise made to the states while accepting this was that revenue shortfalls arising from the transition to GST would be made good from a pooled GST compensation fund for a period of 5 years up to 2020. This corpus was to be funded by a compensation cess levied on so-called demerit goods. The mechanism for this is spelled out in Section 7 of the GST Act 2017, which you now seek to destroy. The quantification was to be done annually. You project a revenue assumption of 14% compounded growth on the revenue of the base year 2015-16, and you calculate the difference between this and the actual GST collection of any particular year. And please, applying this formula to the years 2021, the anticipated shortfall is 3 lakh crores. The compensation pool, however, is only 65,000 crores. But the centre cannot shy away from its responsibility. It must cover the shortfall of 2.35 lakh crores by borrowing. I ask myself, in such a situation, is incompetence force majeure? Is criminal negligence force majeure? The second insidious objective of this bill is to give a blanket clearance with no accountability whatsoever to the PM Cares Fund. The origin of the PM Cares Fund is steeped in non-transparency and is inherently discriminatory in nature. I was among the first citizens to petition the Supreme Court of India against the discriminatory nature of this fund, but the bench in its wisdom, while not dismissing my petition on merits, asked me to bring it up in Parliament. So here I am, moving from the corridors of judicial review to the Janta Ki Adalat. The government issued a circular on March 28, 2020, notifying that all contributions to the PM Cares Fund qualified as eligible CSR contributions under Item 8, Schedule 7 of the Companies Act. But it also disqualified contributions made to the state relief funds from being treated as valid CSR activities. But this was earlier expressly permissible under Schedule 7 of the Act of 2013. So unfair treatment of identical contributions to the PM CARES and to the state relief funds is against public interest, is against public policy. It completely disincentivizes corporate contributions which the state governments would otherwise have got. It creates an unfair, unjust and discriminatory distinction against the state and chief minister's relief funds in favor of the PM CARES funds. The Honourable Minister, while introducing the bill yesterday, read out a long list of school children and pensioners who had apparently readily and happily given away their meagre savings to the PM CARES fund. But the Honourable Minister was strangely silent on the 38 PSUs that donated more than 2,100 crores to the fund. Almost 70% of the fund's corpus comes from 38 PSU donations. These are public sector undertakings, share capital subscribed to by the Government of India out of public money. Without an audit, the conflict of interest is writ large for anyone to see. I hope you remember that the Prime Minister's office, in response to an application seeking disclosure of the incorporating documents of this trust, had said this is not a public authority, hence it's not open to RTI. But the very legislative intent behind Section 135 of the Companies Act was to encourage companies to use CSR funds for local welfare activities for local communities in areas of operation. But the PM CARES fund diverts those very funds away from local communities into this dark hole where not even a speck of light can enter. Coal India has committed 221 crores to a fund while it cannot contribute to the state relief funds of Bengal and Jharkhand, where it is 90% of its operations. ONGC has mentioned that it has offered funds from its CSR budget for the year, even though the allocation is not yet determined. Power Finance Corporation contributed 200 crores to the PM CARES fund, even though its entire CSR allocation is only 150 crores. It's almost like the courtiers of the emperor are competing with each other to give gifts to the emperor with public funds. If these improprieties were not enough, then please consider the massive donations made by Chinese companies. This is horrific. Xiaomi, a Chinese company accused of snooping on people, gave the fund 10 crores. TikTok, currently banned by this government only a few weeks ago, gave 30 crores. Huawei, banned around the world for its well-documented links to the Chinese army, gave 10 crores. Why did you take this money from our enemies? Why don't you return this tainted money? I'm sure no dying Indian would want to be on a ventilator paid for by enemy money at this time. Would they?
Right.
I ask you, you say you have put 2,000 crores towards the purchase of 50,000 ventilators. Please lay on the table of this house how many ventilators have been physically delivered, to which hospitals, to which states. Also tell us the manner of procurement. The way airwaves and the way airports are sold in this country to crony capitalists, I hope this procurement was not done by those same individuals. This is a question that we need to ask. And the dangers of these unverified foreign donations are amplified by the fact that the PM CARES fund is exempt from FCRA regulations, even though it doesn't meet the precondition of a body whose funds are audited by the CAG. You are bringing the PM CARES fund under the ambit of the same clause that governs the Prime Minister's National Relief Fund, the existing fund. What is the need to institute a new fund where one exists? Prime Ministers will come and go, but the existence of a fund is not up for discussion. What is this need to name everything after one individual? What is this need? This is a democracy, it is not an elected autocracy. We need to remind this government. First, you are raising funds on the basis of public office. The very name, a Prime Minister's fund, makes people think this is government authority. So by saying it is not open to RTI, you are running away from the spirit of transparency you claim to be wedded to. Second, cabinet ministers are trustees administering the funds. So you are impermissibly expanding the scope of your ministerial office in excess of the mandate determined by the Constitution. The third, your commandeering resources. Donations are done by default. A circular issued on April 17 by the Department of Revenue under the Ministry of Finance told every officer and staff of the Government of India to contribute 1 day's salary till March 21. This would be deducted. If they wish to not donate, they should put this in writing. Tell me, in this atmosphere of fear and vengeance currently prevalent in this country, which bureaucrat, which public officer will say they do not wish to donate? I have only a few minutes left, and so bear with my bluntness. To this government, I say, stop lying to us all the time about growth rates, about migrant welfare, about expenditure, and the laughable delusion that the PM cares. Stop marketing 20,000 crore packages as relief measures when in truth it comprises money already spent and money to be given as loans, and imaginary money that will never reach the people it is supposed to. Stop cheating the state governments of their dues made through a constitutional promise. Stop wasting funds on vanity projects when the state governments who actually make a difference are deprived time and again. And so, I end by saying that today's India reminds me of Hans Christian Andersen's story, The Emperor's New Clothes, where the emperor was cloaked in nothing, but his sycophantic courtiers could not tell him so. The Bengali poet Nirendranath Chakraborty in his poem Ulango Raja said only one small innocent little boy in the entire kingdom had the courage to stand up and ask the naked emperor, Raja, tor kapor koi? Today I ask the same question, Emperor, where are your clothes?
महुआ मोइत्रा लगातार अपने बयान और ट्वीट के जरिए केंद्र सरकार पर हमलावर होती रहती हैं और अपने बयानों से सरकार को बेचती रहती हैं। ब्यूरो रिपोर्ट, पार्लियामेंट्री बिजनेस।